Yo, mic check 1 2 1 2. It's your boy K-Blao X. Want to do a quick video real quick. Test this real quick. If that can work. Just want to real quick break it down. The black puzzle lit. So a long time ago, I was introduced to this concept called black puzzle by an artist named Jennifer. She was a Virgo woman I used to date, and she used to describe this concept called a black puzzle in the aspect of you to think, for example, of somebody going to a store, buying a puzzle, taking it home, spreading the pieces all out on the table, taking a good hard look at it, and saying, "Okay, I'm done." And you know what I'm saying? So, this is what spirituality is kind of like at first when you approach it, thinking that you know everything. You know, when you first start studying astrology, you feel a higher purpose calling you toward it, but you feel that higher purpose is the actual application toward what it is that you're trying to discover. It's not the case. So what I describe is just basically like a puzzle. Black puzzle is when you start to put those pieces together, but you're not meditating on them. You know what I'm saying? So you can hear me talk, or you can hear somebody explain to you like what a Cancer is, what a Virgo is, what a Pisces is, what a Sagittarius is, and you may hear these things and it may make sense to you, but it still hits you like a black puzzle from the aspect in that you're not meditating on these things. So you hear some people say that, I know astrology, and they may even know what their zodiac sign is. You see what I'm saying? But they still, you might hear them say something to the sense of, well, that could be said about anything. Like, for example, if I say that, I don't know, Taurus is real stubborn, per se. You know what I'm saying? We hear this a lot about Taurus. Or like me, for example, I'm Aquarius. So you hear Aquarius is cold and distant, per se, a lot of times. Or you might hear, any of these traits. And then somebody might say something, oh, well, you can say that about any sign. You know what I'm saying? Well, for the most part, you know what I'm saying? I typically don't run into too many Cancers or Leos that are cold and distant, per se. You know what I'm saying? I don't typically run into too many, you know what I'm saying, Pisces people, or even like Gemini people, for example. Like, these are not stubborn people. Like the characteristics that you may apply to a Taurus don't apply to all the signs. You know what I'm saying? So like a lot of times it'll be the total opposite. But you hear people say that, oh, you can apply that to any sign. This is what you get when you talk about a black puzzle. And they're like, they kind of hear these concepts, but they still abstract, and they know what it is. Pardon the body. They know what it is, but they just not meditating on these things, and they don't necessarily see how these things apply to them. So when you meditate, you start to see different scenarios play out. That when you run these scenarios, you start to see patterns. You know what I'm saying, in the decision making process. You know what I'm saying. Black puzzle don't allow you to see these patterns. So like, even though you may know what these things are, you may even it's a lot of Christians who go to church and study the Bible and suffer from what we call black puzzle. And they're like, they know what these things are, but they don't meditate on them per se. Like, they just sitting up in church trying to, get through it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hurry up, get this hour over and get up out of here. You know what I'm saying? People, may somebody, like, you may be in a relationship with, I don't know, say like a Capricorn, for example. Not to throw the Capricorns under the bus, but like, say you're in a relationship with a Capricorn, you know what I'm saying? And you come on my page and you know what I'm saying, find a Capricorn video, you know what I'm saying? And you showing them, you know what I'm saying, the negative traits. You know what I'm saying? You're in a relationship with this person, you trying to, you know what I'm saying, correct them in regards toward what's going to be necessary in order for the relationship to work. So I'm saying, so you might start showing them content, man, okay, these are the things you're doing, these are negative traits, but they don't want to hear this shit. You turn around and show them to positive traits, though, they'll be like, yeah, I do be doing that. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is what we talk about black puzzle. And they're like, it literally goes both ways. I can sit here and make a video about all the great things on a Capricorn, for example, or I can sit here and make a video on all the negative things of Capricorn. And so saying, somebody tell you that astrology don't apply when you start talking about the negative stuff, but then as soon as you start talking about the positive stuff, they're like, oh yeah, you know what, that is true, that is me. You know what I'm saying? This is black puzzle shit. Or also it's called, this is another word called departmentalizing, and then like people, it's like a buffet. You know what I'm saying? Departments is like different departments. So departmentalizing is like taking which parts of the information that you need and applying it to yourself, and then like leaving the rest. You see what I'm saying? So also in Jeet Kune Do, so then that's the concept too. You know what I'm saying? Bruce Lee Kung Fu called Jeet Kune Do, which basically means like take what you need and leave the rest. That's not necessarily what departmentalizing. Departmentalizing is like, you know what I'm saying? basically choosing which parts apply to you. You see what I'm saying? It's like the choice more so than like the action. You know what I'm saying? So when you start breaking down certain traits and people don't hear that shit, you know what I'm saying? And they start departmentalizing and picking apart which part, picking and choosing which parts apply and which parts don't, stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? When they obviously clear that they all do. So I'm saying this is like departmentalized. You know what I'm saying? And also too, like not being in a position to receive the information correctly. You know what I'm saying? And that like if somebody trying to correct you or somebody trying to show you, you know what I'm saying, some negative traits and shit like that, you know what I'm saying, you have to be able to receive that information in a way where you're not looking at it as like, you know what I'm saying, you're not looking at it as like confrontation and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Me as an Aquarius, a lot of times I'm very good at approaching somebody with a situation like, you know what I'm saying, where something needs to be corrected, but then it end up turning into confrontation. You know what I'm saying? And like motherfuckers don't know that I be sitting there literally doing everything I can to try to avoid it turning into confrontation. You know what I'm saying? But some people just don't like being corrected in that position, in that they're not in a situation, you know what I'm saying, where they able to receive that information. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta look at these type of people and understand that like they may know this shit already. You know what I'm saying? The things that you're telling them, you just another spoke on that wheel, another person in their life. I mean, another person in their life reminding them of these things that they need to work on. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times it don't be me per se. I just be another person in their life telling them the same shit that they done heard from a whole bunch of other people. That type of person, same thing. It's black puzzle. They know what it is. You know what I'm saying? They know the pieces that they got. They didn't put the pieces together. You know, it's different from like the scenario I painted before. Somebody come in and throw the pieces on the table and look at it and say, I'm done. Nah, that's not what this is. Black puzzle, this person didn't put, they know what it is. They didn't put the piece together internally, but the whole puzzle is a black piece. So like, you imagine you spend all that time, like actually a black puzzle. Like if you bought a whole puzzle piece and the whole shit was all black. You know what I'm saying? You got to literally sit there and piece together a 5x5 foot poster and every piece is literally black. You know what I'm saying? This is how a lot of times, you know what I'm saying, man, I run into a lot of Leos who had this shit and a lot of like people who just don't believe astrology is real. You know what I'm saying? People who don't follow, like a lot of Pisces people might have this shit. So I'm saying Leos, Cancers, certain Virgos and shit. Who else? A lot of Taurus had this. So I'm saying like Aries, of course Aries. You know what I'm saying? They think they got the pieces put together, but the whole puzzle black. So like, you know, like Poe has a concept. You say so close yet so far. You know what I'm saying? You gotta be able to receive information and ask questions and like and actually meditate on the things that's, you know, that need to be corrected. There's no point in studying abstract astrology, you know what I'm saying, trying to correct other people if you're not working on things that you need to be correcting on. You know what I'm saying? And want to actually correct on them things. Like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, you know what I'm saying? She was a Cancer woman, you know what I'm saying? And I asked her, I was like, man, you know, she was telling me about her man. Oh, my man, you know, he be ignoring me. He don't acknowledge my feelings. This is that, and she was explaining to me how you know, they had been together for so long, and she was tired of explaining to him, you know, that she was emotional and he's not acknowledging her emotions. You know what I'm saying? And I had asked her, I was like, okay, so basically what you telling me is that this is something that you want him to be actively aware that he working on. You know what I'm saying? And she was like, yeah, like, you know, it's one thing me telling him this shit, but it don't even dawn on him, like, in real time that, like, you know what I'm saying, that, like, I'm emotional and he needs to acknowledge this shit. And I was like, okay, well, mind you, this came from the same, you know, comment, me leaving the comment on my videos. I was like, okay, well, you know, me looking at it from the spouse situation. I'm like, okay, well, like, do you, if I was to ask him, you know, what it is that you need to work on, what do you think he would say? You know what I'm saying? And she was like, I don't know, probably, you know, my attitude, shit like that. And I was like, okay, like listen to the way you answer my question. Like, do you even sound like somebody who is even actively aware of the things that you need to be working on in a relationship? Or like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, are you the type of person that, you know what I'm saying, that sees the benefit in what this person trying to correct? You know what I'm saying? Like if you an air sign, you know, or you say you're an earth sign, and you don't fuck with emotion. You're like, man, I hate emotion. I don't fuck with water signs, shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Granted, okay. Now, mind you, like me, I'm an air sign. I'm married to a water sign. You know what I'm saying? Now, you talking about emotion, shit like that. Like, I'm not good with him. I suck at this shit. You know what I'm saying? But like me being with a water sign and understanding that, like, okay, I lack in this department. I can see the benefit in me learning these things. How it's gonna make me a better person. You know what I'm saying? So I don't look at these things like a burden. You know what I'm saying? It's a black puzzle when you see these things as a burden and you can't even see the benefit and why you need to change in this regard. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know know what I'm saying, in the relationship with me and my wife, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot of aspects. I'm a total asshole. They're like, I didn't necessarily, like, up front, I don't see myself as an asshole, you know what I'm saying? But then when you start to learn that everybody ain't cut from the cloth that you from, you kind of see yourself like, okay, wait, man, maybe I am kind of an asshole in this regard. You know what I'm saying? And you can see the benefit in wanting to change in that regard. You know what I'm saying? Certain other people who got black puzzle, they can't even see the benefit. You know what I'm saying? The notion that there's things that they need to work on is totally fucking, you know what I'm saying, foreign to them. You know what I'm saying? So they be in a relationship with somebody and they don't even know the things that they need to supposed to work. They're not even important to them. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Joe, if you're in a relationship, obviously there's gonna be certain things that you have to work on. So, and you not only necessarily work on, you need to see the benefit that you're gonna have in actually doing it. You know what I'm saying? If the light bulb don't even come on, motherfucking light bulb don't even kick on, and me sitting there telling you like, hey Joe, you know, if you consider the woman's emotions a little bit more, it's going to benefit the relationship, you know what I'm saying? Or even vice versa. If you consider your man's perspective and that, like, you know what I'm saying, he's not trying to be cruel to you, he's trying to, you know what I'm saying, teach you something, so I'm saying, whether it's discipline, whether it's accountability, whatever it is, like, you know what I'm saying, if you look at it like, you know what I'm saying, they're not trying to, you know, if you actually love this person, so I'm saying, then you shouldn't even look at it like that, you know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying, a lot of people who got, you know what I'm saying, look at their life like it's a black puzzle, and they can't put the pieces together correctly, yeah, you're going to run into that type of conversation where, like, every time you're trying to come in and trying to correct them, you know what I'm saying, it's going to turn into confrontation. And a lot of times you might even hear them explain this shit as confrontation. You're like, oh, man, he's very confrontational. Very confrontational. And you may be looking at it like, Joe, I'm not being confrontational. Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody, at some point, it's going to come a time for correction. It's going to come a time for you to understand the things about yourself that you didn't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody comes into a relationship most of the time. Most of the time, people do not come into a relationship fully fucking developed. So I'm saying, like, you discovering these things as the ball is rolling. So I'm saying, so you have to make yourself available for the correction. You see what I'm saying? But like, and like I say, a lot of the times people they'll sit there and string you along. Like people, black puzzle, they'll string you along. Oh yeah, I know, I'm working on it. So I'm saying, but a lot of times what end up happening is like they teach you in the old dude. So I'm saying you got a date with that. A lot of times people got a date with destiny, Joe, and like you just be another spoke on that wheel. Like you be the trying to warn them. You know what I'm saying? And then like it ain't until Saturn return come, they're like, you know what I'm saying? Saturn don't give a fuck. Like Saturn will be like, all right, well Joe, you had time to work on these things. You know what I'm saying? And did you work on them? You know what I'm saying? Because you about to be tested on a level that you gonna fail. You know what I'm saying? In this particular regard. You know what I'm saying? And if you with somebody, you know what I'm saying, you gonna fail with them. You know what I'm saying? And like that's where like even in the old dude they teach you like people who seal fate can't hang around people who unseal fate. You see what I'm saying? So like, you know what I'm saying? Because now your fate is unsealed. You see what I'm saying? If you're a type of person who's spiritual, you listening to this type of information, you have spiritual awareness, you trying to work on your inner self, and you literally hang around people who got a black puzzle. Like it's one thing to be totally ignorant. It's another thing to have black puzzle, which is like you kind of know, but you know what I'm saying? You kind of putting the pieces together, but at the same time, you not acknowledging that shit. You don't see the benefit in it. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, if you that type of person, if you a spiritual person hang around with somebody like that, you see what I'm saying? Now your fate is entangled with that person. You see what I'm saying? So like the best thing you could do is, you know what I'm saying, keep that motherfucker at arm distance. You see what I'm saying? Because now they karma gonna be your karma. You see what I'm saying? And I've learned too that like, you know, prayer is way more powerful than people think. You see what I'm saying? When you pray hard enough, you see a lot of change. You know what I'm saying? You see real change. Like if you know you've been doing real work, this is the thing. A lot of people who do spirituality kind of drop the ball at. Like your prayer is more powerful than you think. You got to ask yourself, what do your prayer like? If I came to you all day, hey man, what do your prayer sound like? You see what I'm saying? Like wait, what? Like when you pray, what do you pray for? Do it work? You see what I'm saying? Like you know what I'm saying? A lot of people feel awkward about that conversation. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of times their prayer don't work. You know what I'm saying? Because they be on bullshit. You see what I'm saying? So like when you really start to get on your spiritual grind and you start to really separate yourself from the bullshit and you start to really get into a high frequency vibration, you see what I'm saying? You're not gonna see these things as a burden. You're gonna kind of want to do these things, and you're gonna be you know what I'm saying? The bullshit start to get the fuck away from you automatically. You see what I'm saying? So praying helps accelerate that process. You see what I'm saying? Like, especially if you already spiritual. You see what I'm saying? So, believe it or not, man, like, you know, you have to speak these things into existence. You see what I'm saying? So, if you're not, you know what I'm saying, you got to be very specific in the problems that you're facing. You know what I'm saying? And speak to the universe. You know what I'm saying? Speak to God. You know what I'm saying? And what's gonna happen is, you know what I'm saying? If you on point, the universe gonna have to get the fuck out your way. Whatever it is that you asking for, the universe gonna get the fuck out the way and let you get it. You know what I'm saying? Whatever problem it is, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna correct itself. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta correct shit. All you gotta do is just keep getting more refined in your spiritual discipline. You see what I'm saying? And turn that black puzzle into an actual vivid, full, bright, colored puzzle. You see what I'm saying? Where you can see, okay, this puzzle is no longer black. I can actually see, you know what I'm saying, why this piece fits here, why this piece fits here, and this piece fits here. And you know, when you got IQ and intelligence, you can see how one thing leads to the next. You see what I'm saying? When you got black puzzle, you can't see how all of these things is connected. And like this leads to this and this leads to that, and you know. So you got to meditate on these things. You see what I'm saying? You can't picture magic, like I said at the beginning. You can't go to the store, buy a puzzle, take it home, throw it on the table, and look at it and say, I'm done. You got to literally sit there and take the time to put these pieces together and meditate on them and see how they affect your life. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you ain't subscribed yet. Like, share, comment, etc., etc., etc. So make sure y'all check out Promo page too. You know what I'm saying? Promo Godspeed TV. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all look that up. POEMOE TV Godspeed. His channel is lit as hell. So make sure y'all check that shit out too. I'm about to roll this motherfucker blunt. Out of here. Make sure you sign up for hoodx.com and you know what I'm saying? Send me a message whenever you know what I'm saying, try and get at me. Y'all know how to get at me. Alright, I'm out of here. You did.